Welcome to the Family Milk Cow podcast, where in every episode I cover topics that equip you with the skills and know-how to look after your girls in the barn. Family milk cows are more than just livestock. They are a part of our families. They deserve the best care possible from knowledgeable and responsible owners. So pull up a chair or your milk stool and let's dive into another episode of the Family Milk Cow podcast. Hello and welcome back for another episode. I'm your host, Kelsey Wolf. You may also know me from the blog and YouTube channel Rough and Tumble Farmhouse. Right away at the top of the episode, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Ginger, the newest member of the Milkmaid Brigade. Milkmaid Brigade is a way that you can help support the show and also get some kind of fun perks yourself. It is available over on Patreon, and it's available at a whole bunch of different levels that you can help support the podcast. This is not anything that is paid for by anybody aside from me. It is not a moneymaker. It actually costs me money to have this podcast, but I think it's really important and I'm really passionate about it. And so if it is valuable to you, you can check out the Milkmaid Brigade, you can sponsor an episode, or if none of those things are in your wheelhouse right now, just sharing it is also hugely helpful. So again, thank you, Ginger, for joining the Milkmaid Brigade. I'm going to get some fun stuff in the mail for you ASAP. As promised, in today's episode, we are going to be talking about our cows' stomachs. And let me tell you, I learned so many interesting, cool things while researching this episode, and I'm so excited to share it all with you. Now, cows are ruminants, as are sheep and goats. And what a ruminant is an animal that digests their food, at least partially, in something called a rumen in their stomach. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Now, right away at the beginning, I'm going to share with you some sort of fun facts that I thought were fascinating that I did not know. So, first of all, cows take between 25,000 and 40,000 bites every day when they're grazing. 25 to 40,000 bites. That's just, my jaw hurts just thinking about that. Cows spend their time, about a third of it is grazing, a third of it is ruminating, which we will talk about, and about a third of it is just kind of hanging out, just chilling, scratching themselves, visiting you, doing whatever. Their abdomen is about 75% taken up by their stomach and the four parts of their stomach, which we're going to talk about. And lastly, which I thought was also just crazy, is cows produce up to 50 quarts of saliva a day. Think about quart jars on your shelf right now. If you have some, 50 of those full of cow spit every single day. That's just bonkers. Sources for today's episode are the University of Minnesota Extension website and another one from the University of Mississippi Extension website that was hugely helpful and has some really awesome pictures as well. If you want to kind of get a visual of all this, I'll make sure I link it below down in the description. All right, now let's dive into the nitty gritty. Cows have, some people say it's one stomach with sort of four compartments. Other people say it's four separate stomachs. I don't know. The answer I think is kind of somewhere in between, but let's just talk about them all right now. So what happens when your cow is eating is first they chew up their food, but they don't chew it particularly well. They have a lot, they have to eat a lot, so they can't waste all their time chewing. They chew as much as they need to and then swallow it down. It's going to travel down through their esophagus. And from there, it kind of splits into two directions. Larger, bigger stuff, like their hay, is going to split off and go into the rumen. And smaller stuff and heavier stuff is going to drop straight down into their reticulum. So now we're already into kind of two different parts here. We're going to talk more about the rumen in a little bit. We're going to focus more first on the reticulum first. It is sometimes also called the reticulorumen because the rumen and the reticulum kind of free flow back and forth to each other. Things can also sort of free flow from their rumen back up and out. That's how cows, they chew their cud. So again, they eat all this grass as quickly as they can. And then when they have time to just kind of sit and ruminate, some of that food might come back up from their rumen or even from their reticulum. They kind of burp it up a little bit and then they chew that food more because it needs to be processed down a little bit more before it can move on through their system. So the rumen to reticulum and then even back up to their mouth can all kind of flow a little bit freely. So what we're going to start with here is the reticulum. So that is where smaller stuff is going to drop straight down into the reticulum. So little bits of feed that don't need as much digesting. That's also where we talked about last week where hardware is going to fall down into the reticulum. This is also where water is going to go straight down into the reticulum. It's not going to go to the rumen. So the reticulum is sort of the first place that everything is going to go. Now from the reticulum, stuff might go into the rumen. So the rumen is it's sort of more like kind of up and away a little bit. If you look at pictures, it's much easier if you have a chance to sit down and kind of just look at this as I'm talking about it. It's probably pretty helpful. Sorry if you're out in the barn or wherever. You're just going to have to kind of visualize as best as you can. So leaving the reticulum for a second, that's where all the little small bits have gone. That's where the water has gone through. The other food that went up into the rumen first, up in the rumen, it's going to be fermenting in there. So the rumen has a lot of papillae, I think is how you pronounce it. I don't know, something along those lines. Papillae. It is lined with those, and they are there for nutrient absorption. The rumen is like a big giant fermentation vat, and up to 65% of the starches and sugars that the cow has eaten are all going to be digested here. The rumen itself is internally divided by four muscular pillars: the dorsal, ventral, caudodorsal, I think, and caudoventral sacs. So that rumen is just churning up that food. It's got all sorts of that good sort of bacteria, gut bacteria in there that is digesting all of that food, a lot of the sugars and a lot of the starches anyway. And from there, as I said, it can kick some of it back up into the mouth, or once it has broken it down enough, it's going to drop it down into that reticulum where we kind of started our journey. Of course, because of all that sort of fermentation happening, there is a buildup of methane, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide. That's where you get those stinky little cow burps that come out sometimes right in your face. That's all coming because of that fermentation. From here, let's follow the food that has been now, it got put into the rumen, it got digested well enough there that it's broken down small enough, it's going to drop back down into that reticulum where we kind of started out with other heavier things or things that were smaller that went down there first, as well as our water went down there. From the reticulum, we are going to be heading into the omasum. The omasum is sometimes called many piles or the butcher's Bible. This is because it's got tons and tons of folds, kind of like pages in a book. If you look at a picture of it, it doesn't all kind of sit smushed together like a book, but I can see how it kind of looks maybe like a bunch of scattered messy pages. All of these folds are there to increase the surface area because this is an area that's going to absorb most of the water that your cow drinks, and it's also going to absorb some of the nutrients from their feed. From the omasum, we are going to move on to the abomasum. And so this is the last of the stomachs or parts of the stomach. So we had the rumen, we had the reticulum, we had the omasum, and now we're into the abomasum. It is called the true stomach because it is actually the closest to the sort of digestive system a non ruminant would have, the closest to what their stomach would look like. This stomach's big job is to break down proteins. It's not going to digest them here, but with a little help from the pancreas coming in with some pancreatic lipase, it is going to really break down the proteins for further digestion as it gets on into the intestines. From the abomasum, we are then moving into those small intestines, which can be in a large adult cow up to 150 feet long. Isn't that just a small intestine? It's so crazy how much is in our cows. And those intestines have a 20-gallon capacity, which I also think is fascinating. The big thing their small intestines are doing is absorbing nutrients, all that protein that the abomasum was able to break down. It's all getting absorbed as it runs through those small intestines. After the small intestines, we're heading into the large intestines, which start with a pouch called the cecum, which actually has a 2-gallon sort of holding capacity. The large intestine is going to absorb kind of the last of the water that somehow did not get absorbed in the previous parts of the stomach. And from there, stuff is coming out their butt. And it was interesting to read about the cecum, I thought, because so that's not something that they say that it doesn't really have much of a use in horses. It said that they actually have a big purpose, but in cows, it doesn't really, except for I was thinking about when I go to milk and I call them poop buckets. I keep a couple 5-gallon buckets there to catch if she's going to poop. And there have been times before where I swear she has almost entirely filled a 5-gallon bucket, at least, well over halfway full. And so that makes sense, finding out there's just this pouch sitting in her large intestine that is collecting all of that stuff. So that makes a lot more sense because sometimes you're wondering, where is this coming from and is this going to end and is my bucket going to hold it all? Well, that's why the cecum is holding on to all that poop. All right, so there you have it, the basics of the cow digestive system, how everything works. Start at the mouth, esophagus, down into the rumen, reticulum kind of area, then to the omasum, abomasums, intestines, and out the other end. I thought this was such a fascinating topic to learn about, and I think the more we can understand about how our animals function and what their bodies are doing, the better caretakers we can be for them. Hopefully, you found that interesting too, and at the very least, you now have the trivia to say that a cow produces enough spit to fill 50 mason jars, 50 quart mason jars in a day. My goodness. Make sure, like I said at the top of the episode, you're checking out the Milkmaid Brigade or other ways you can get involved with the show. Other than that, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Family Milk Cow Podcast. You can become a part of the Family Milk Cow Podcast by joining the Milkmaid Brigade, sponsoring an episode, or following along on social media. You can find links for all these and more, including show notes, at familymilkcowpodcast.com. If you love what you're hearing, please rate, review, subscribe, and turn on those automatic downloads. One of the best ways to support this show is simply by sharing it. And as always, make sure to give your girl down in the barn a good scratch behind the ears from me.